Good afternoon, everyone. My name is LaShawn Former. I'm the Director of Expansion and Design for River District Association. River District Association is under Main Street America. We are part of our job is to revitalize downtown. But we also been given the privilege to expand and add an addition to our program, and that's the North Main Business Corridor. And by expanding to the North Main Business Corridor, we came up with this awesome program called the True North Speaker Series. And it's a speaker series that's to highlight some of the amazing Black women in the Dan River region. And today, I have the privilege of none other than Everlena Ross. Everlena Ross, thank you for showing up for the show. Thank you for being a part of this True North Speaker Series. We are really glad to have you here today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored. I feel very privileged to be the first speaker. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, I think it was amazing when I got your bio. It was like, oh, I know Miss Everlena. I worked at Pennsylvania County Community Action. But to get your bio and see the rundown, I was like, okay, Michelle Obama, move out of the way. We got Everlena. We have Everlena
Okay, all
Ross.
right.
I don't know. Like, just some of the things that you have accomplished over your life. And that also goes back to why we really want to do the speaker series because we interact with people on a day-to-day basis, but we don't really understand the footprint that they make in this community, the impact that they do, and the reason why some of these doors are open is because amazing people like you. So off gate, I do want to say thank you for your
Thank
hard
you.
work, thank you for your dedication, and thank you for the type of footprint and baton that you have led these Black women in this community because it means a lot to a lot of women like me.
Again, thank you. And my footprints were laid for other good people. So I feel it a privilege and honor and an obligation to do my part to make sure that this continues.
Yeah, and you did it. You doing it. Let me put it that way. So let's just kick it off. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Miss Everlena Ross?
An interesting question. Everlena Ross was born up on a farm out in Whitmore, Virginia.
Okay.
About 16 miles from here. Grew up here. Parents were Lucy and Banks Breedlove. They were devout spiritual leaders in themselves, and they instilled that in me and my sister. There's two of us. Went to a one-room elementary school.
Okay.
Grew up raised in Tobacco. So when I became of age to leave the farm, I migrated to Washington, D.C. with my sister. And there I went to Howard University. HU, Carla Harris. Graduated from Howard, worked at the several different jobs during that time, and then stayed involved with political life, social life, and that's basically Everlena Ross. Start working with the General Accounting Office. We'll go into the next question, but that's basically Everlena. I'm married now to Larry Ross, the former pastor of Rosebud Baptist Church. I retired from the executive director position from Pennsylvania County Community Action in December of 22. But it's interesting how God has orchestrated your life. So now I consider myself a professional caregiver.
Okay.
And who knows what he's going to take me next. So that's a little bit about Everlena.
Okay. What inspired you to be a leader? Because a lot of us can just work a job, do our job, 9 to 5, boom, I go home, I take care of my family, I do what I got to do. But what made you say, okay, it's something in me that I can showcase and be a leader? And what inspired you to be a leader and why?
Originally, I never thought of myself as being a leader. Again, I'm going back to my parents. They instilled in my sister and me that you are no better than anybody else. You're as good as anybody else. And in order to show yourself, you have to prepare yourself. So I always knew that I wanted to be involved in some kind of management decision arena, but not as the executive director or the CEO. So I guess my career path led to that. When I moved to DC, going to Howard, working full time, I started off at the Civil Service Commission.
Oh, wow.
It's no longer called the Civil Service Commission. It changed everything in DC. But there, I met three people that I don't know, it was just God always intervening, and He just led them to me instead of me going to them. And they each kept insisting that I reach out, that I move further. I started off as a clerk typist, still love to type, but they said that's not where you belong. So it's interesting that one of these women uh, came to me and she said, I see something in you, and I'm going to take you out of that clerical position. And of course, I'm from the country, had never been to the big city. I decided that no, that's not what I want to do. So she kept, the next thing I knew, she had courses in front of me. You're going to take these courses. She put me in executive training, and I was the only clerical person in that group. But she led me to all these kinds of different positions. And from there, I got promoted. And then I met another young lady, first black woman I ever saw. So the first in an office, her own distinctive office, making decisions. And she had the upper management would come to her for decisions. And she came to me one day and she says, you're going to be my assistant.
Wow.
So, and I'm thinking, well, that won't happen. But eventually, she kept training me, sending me the courses, management. And anytime I'd make an error, she would come correct me, which was often. She'd correct me, and she said, "This is how you do it." The other thing that I really was impressed with her is that she was not afraid to stand up to anyone and say, "No, this is what I'm. This is what we have to do." And she always had integrity with it. She treated everyone with respect and honor. And then to top it all off, she was a sharp young lady. I will always envision. She wore high heels, dressed immaculate, but yet everybody loved and respected her, even though she was in a position of power. And after that, I just kind of didn't have a choice. It just always kept motivating me to move on. And then I got a call from the Navy Department from a coworker that I had worked with at General Accounting Office. And she said, Everlena, we have a director's job coming up. Send me your application.
Oh, wow.
So I did. I ended up there, and I stayed there until I resigned to come back home.
Yeah, and it's crazy that you was talking about somebody like ordering your steps because I never forget when I made the decision to apply for Pennsylvania County Community Action, and it was I was so nervous for my interview. So I'm sitting there and I had on red heels, and they were really really high. And I said, if I can make it in the building and I can make it to sit down to the interview, I can take them out as soon as I come out the door. And you came by. I did not know that you was part of the interview team. Didn't know you worked for Pennsylvania County Community Action. And you said, I love them red heels. Sister, you are sharp. And it just automatically made me exhale because I was like, whew, I saw another black woman, somebody that looked like me, and also someone who just commended me. And the whole time I was at Pennsylvania County Community Action, you was like, keep doing what you're doing, keep working. You're going to really make a difference in this community.
Yes.
And at the time, you worked for Pennsylvania County Community Action. You was our supervisor, but I still didn't know the depths of what you brought to the table. It wasn't until I got out in the community and see you navigate it. And I was like, wow, going to different events, the NAACP events and the Pennsylvania County Democratic events and all the church events, and you're doing the welcome. I was like, oh my God, Miss Everlena doing the welcome, or being first lady. And they was like, Miss Everlena, first lady. And I was like, oh, first lady. I mean, it just shows you the different things that black women can be. And like you were saying, somebody showed it to you, for you, you showed that to me. So it just shows how it all plays in God's plan, or how it all plays in somebody, in the alignment.
Yes.
So, who are some of your mentors? Were some of your mentors or idols, and why did you pick them?
I think I just alluded to both of them that were really my mentors. Her name was Sue Mathis, who happened to be, and I try to remember that people are people. My mama said God made everybody. Her name was Sue Mathis.
Okay.
At the Civil Service Commission. She was from West Virginia.
Oh,
Again,
wow.
when she spotted me typing, because I tried to be the best at whatever I tried to do, and she said, young lady, you have a career in front of you. She was the first one that sent me to a management training class as a clerk typist. I was in there
Wow.
with GS 14 and 15 folk. Had no idea, felt very uncomfortable, but I learned a lot. She was the one that said, you can move up, go back to school. I was already in school. I'm thinking, I'm already in school. I can't take anything else. But she was the one that just kept saying, continue to grow, continue to grow. In fact, she took the secretarial position from me and started me as administrative assistant. So again,
Wow.
and then the other young lady again was her name was Jean Randall. That was the had her own cubicle. Told me that when I had a little diamond that I had purchased for myself, save your money, show up big time, get you a big diamond, little things like that. And she always told me, she even told me how to sit properly. Make
Okay.
sure you sit properly. So those are two of the women that really impacted my life, other than my parents. Of course, they would always make sure we did everything right. But if I had to add a third one, it would be a Mrs. Mildred Lloyd. She's now deceased, but she was head of the clerical staff at the Civil Service Commission. So most of my idols, everybody since then has impacted my life, but those are the ones that were like the foundation.
Yeah.
And she said, Everlena, whatever you do it well. Give it your best. Don't let anybody intimidate you. Go for it. Make sure that you give 100% and that you can defend any decision or action you make. I remember the first day she lifted her voice at me. I'm being nicely. She said, I told you never to do stuff like that. Now go back
Wow.
and do it right. Turned around, went back to her office. I got up, went to the bathroom and cried and came back and did it right. So those are three, other than my parents, that really, really, I would say were the framework of my career.
And I like how you say that because a lot of times we forget it's the foundation
Yeah,
that sets the tone
yeah,
for everything. And I think it's important that we make sure that these young ladies, I feel like it's a lot of times it's our responsibility to make sure they have that strong foundation because we're
yes,
gonna have hiccups along the way.
yes,
That's how life is set up. You know, nobody's perfect. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna have lessons. We're gonna learn from them. We're gonna grow from them. But if you are built on a strong foundation, I think you can overcome and
yes.
accomplish anything. So tell us what you think are some of those barriers that females have when it comes to leadership. What do you see are some of those barriers that we as women face when it comes to the leadership roles?
When I was thinking about this question again last night, the first person that came to my mind was It's a Man's World, James Brown.
My dad loved James Brown.
And I thought about that question in relation to this question, and I'm going, well, it was at one time, more or less. Times have changed. Women, the female progress, women's improvement, and we are no longer afraid to stand back. We are now become self-motivated. We now see the opportunities. So some of the barriers were men.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And that was the society norm,
Yeah.
that men, when you went into an office or the decision maker, were men. That's just the way it was. As you can see, I'm a little older than the rest of you all, so you might not have experienced that, but at that time it was very rare to see a woman in a leadership position. That's why Jean Randall was so stood out so with me. But the society, with the female change in the mood that say we are number one now, some of the norms, barriers are still there, but it's up to us to break them and to continue to break them. So it's not uncommon now to see a woman in a
Right.
leadership role. That's because we have decided that God made us equal to men. We are different. We
Yeah.
know that. That's how He made us. But we have the same mentality. We bring a lot to the work world, so we can do anything we want to do. The barrier now is women being defeating
Self.
themselves.
Yeah.
We now have to take advantage of going back to school, becoming entrepreneurs, expanding on it's okay if I started off as a clerk typist. That's what I did. But because things and conditions change, don't be afraid to move that next step, as I was. Don't be afraid. If I were younger now, who knows where I could be? I could be going up to the planet or something. The opportunity is there. We just have to be bold enough to step into it and say, I no longer have to be the clerk typist. I no longer have to be the nurse. These are important careers, and I hope nobody takes me wrong. It's imperative that we continue that, but don't limit ourselves. Go into aerochemistry, go into whatever field you want to go into research, go into become the next president. We got a female vice president. Who knows what the sky offers to us? So take advantage of that. The other thing is that we have to encourage each other. Uh, LaShawn, you're good at this. Why don't you take another position that's a VIP in something else? We have to promote each other, keep each other up, encourage each other, and share our gifts. The other thing is don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to fail. If you fail at one position or one time, I made a lot of mistakes. Even as executive director of PCCA, I'm sure that history will show that she didn't do everything right. I only know one person that's perfect.
Yeah.
But I once heard a leader tell me, when you make a decision, it might not go well with everybody. It might not even be the right decision. But you think about it, you find options, you meditate on it, you think about it, you pray about it. And then he said, don't be afraid to be wrong. If you do it and it's wrong, say, okay, let's try another option. So find another way to do it. So I think those things we have to be, ladies have to be. And I encourage everybody, even at my age, if you have been in a position for 5 to 10 years, you said, I really want to have my own business. Go to DCC, go to Avery, go online. You can just ask for help now. Pursue that. You are never too old to change your career, to make an impact, because young folk are watching us. If they see us not excelling, then what do they have to reach for?
I love it. So with all of that, how do you balance? What does balance look like when you talk? You do a lot of your 9 to 5, but since you retired, but your family, civic engagement, church involvement, politics involvement. How do you balance all of that? What's the formula? Because you look good and you do it well. So
Thank you.
how do you balance that?
It's a day by day adventure. I try to always start with this. I start each day with prayer and meditation. Always have, back to my parents. Then you just line up what you have to do. You have to remember that you are a family person. I'm married. I have a family. You have to remember that you work. Give 100%. I do not believe in giving 98%. I try to give 100%. But with work comes obligations that sometimes can interfere with work.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out how you're going to do it. Plan. I believe in the old-fashioned thing, calendar. Everything is on my calendar. One day might be totally marked out. Then I have a to-do list. I have church. My husband was a pastor. I had first lady, and first lady had obligations you have to do. I love people, so I'm always meeting folks. Then I still am vice president of the Pennsylvania County branch of the NAACP. As executive director of PCCA, there are obligations. We travel throughout the world. I had some good leaders before me. So, and then there's a personal time that Everlena needs time for Everlena. So my thing is shopping. I like to go shopping. I might stay in a store 15 minutes and not, 15 minutes would be a whole half an hour and not come out with a thing, but that's relaxation for me. And then get a good book and curl up and do it. So you just have to find a way that you say, if I want to be successful, if I want to make an impact, I got to do this, and give it your 100%. Somehow the Lord will let you work through it, and you just go ahead.
I love the idea about a calendar. I remember I was at a training at Boys and Girls Club, and I had three planners because I just love to write. And this guy, he was in an executive leadership role. He was over like the whole Southeast Conference of Boys and Girls Club. And he said, "What are all these books?" And I said, "Oh, these are my calendars." And he said, "Why do you need three?" He said, "You got three lives." He said, "You done cloned yourself." And I was like, "No." He said, "Well, you only need one calendar." And he said the same thing you said, family's always 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Then you work to the best of your ability, give it 100. He
Mm-hmm.
said the exact same thing. He said, but give yourself one calendar and put everything in it. And he even told me, why don't you schedule your me time?
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, let me see it. And he looked through it. He said, but
Where
where's
is
your
your me
me
time?
time? And I said, what do you mean? He said, put it on your calendar. He
Yes.
said, if you see it on your calendar, you was like, oh, I can't do that. I have something that day.
Yes. Yes.
He said it was very important to schedule your me time just like you would do any other meeting.
Yes.
And I thought that was very vital, especially coming from a man. But a lot of times you just know you don't know who the messenger are.
Right.
Who is the messenger? It's just the message that you need to really
And
pay
that's
attention to.
important. And I want to stress that a little bit more. Now that I retired from the executive director's position, I still have obligations. This morning, when you called and said, arrange thing, I was scheduled to be
Yeah.
here, I thought 11,
Yeah.
11:30. Oops, my husband is bedridden now,
Yeah.
so I have to change that. So last night you get up and you do things before, after you do this. And then on that, at the end of, when I left, my calendar for the day said, after you leave this interview, you're going out and have you a good dinner.
Ooh.
Just me sit there by myself and just take advantage, because when I go back, and then I also take care of my sister basically, who's in Maryland. So now I might have to go back up there this weekend. So you have to
Wow.
do things, but that's important. But don't ever forget to put the Lord first.
Yeah.
Then do what we all have to have income.
Yeah.
So don't forget about work. I'm not saying that not one moment, but don't let your work do something. And that's why it's so important that women find things they like, because it should not be a chore to get to your job every day. I loved working at PCCA. The only reason I left, maybe some, is because of family obligations.
Yeah.
And it's time, the baton has to be passed on down. So it's time for me.
And that goes right into our next question. How will you pass the baton? Like, what is that meaning? All this wisdom, so of course, doing stuff like this and experience, how do you know at the end of the day, you say, okay, I passed the baton? What does that look like for you? Because I know it's important because been talking about it. So how do you know? Okay, I passed that baton. I have laid a pathway. I have opened the doors. Of course, it's going to be another door, another door. But I know for myself, I have created a pathway for other women, and especially Black women, people of color.
Interesting question. I thought about that a lot too, and I'm going to start out with Michelle Obama. Um, her thing now is to going out and particularly speaking with young Black women, encouraging them to not to become self motivators, to share the mistakes that she made, to share the experiences that she had, and she had a lot of them. This
Yeah.
first Black First Lady of the United States, you know her, she has a lot of them. Reading her books. So the thing that I hope I pass along is that you can make a difference. You are not anybody else. You are Everlena. You are LaShawn. Don't try to emulate to a degree anybody else's habits, lifestyle, because we are all unique. You learn from them. I had one of the best executive directors to teach me. I learned from him. His footprints I can never feel. Nobody can feel my footprints. You have to make your own footprints. But step out there and leave something. So how I try to do that is share my knowledge with, I shared it with the staff with management team meeting. I believe in sharing. Whatever goes on, the management team needs to know how to do it. So if something happens to me today, it should not be void. Somebody can step in and pick it up. You leave example, you leave a notebook of how to. These are the things that you have to do at certain times of the year. So you leave a blueprint for them to follow, so nothing is left. Make sure that you provide the training opportunities for each of these persons to do. So that's how, and I hope that the work that I have done has impacted enough folk life that said, Miss Ross, I know at times she must have gotten angry, but she was able to control her anger. She always made sure that the mission, I always say, no matter what else happened, it's the mission of the organization. Uh, People have to do the mission, but if we don't get the mission done, then the people are not here because the mission is the people.
Yeah.
So if I'm PCC, I'm helping people to become better, to enhance their lives. So if we're not meeting that, then what good is the people?
Right.
So that's my example is make sure that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Make mistakes. Don't be afraid to admit you make mistakes. But follow the road blueprint, but don't try to pattern yourself after somebody else because each of us bring a unique uh, position to the organization.
I never thought about it. We talk about succession plans, especially in nonprofit. You know, if somebody hit the lottery, what are this organization going to do? But a life succession plan, I think that really is important. I'm going to have to really remember that. Create a life succession plan so somebody might have a blueprint of how to get things done.
Yes.
I love that,
Yeah,
bro.
you
I
gotta
love
know.
that.
If you were to, I always tell them if I were to get sick today and couldn't come back to PCCA, somebody's light bill still needs to be paid.
Yeah.
Somebody's house note needs to be paid. We still have these grants that have to be done.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Well, I shouldn't say nobody cares. Somebody will care that I'm no longer there, but the agency mission is the most important thing, and somebody has to be in a position to know how. Doesn't mean that everybody's gonna like what you do or how you do it, but you lay it out there and you will feel comfortable with how you left it with, and that blueprint to me, A, B, C, D, funding sources, the timelines, those kinds of things. This is what the agency has to do if it's going to continue to thrive and grow.
I love it. How do you think your work has helped shape the future of this region?
I would hope, because you never know really,
Mhm.
I would hope that my involvement with the Pennsylvania County Chamber of Commerce went before it merged and became Pennsylvania County Danville Chamber of Commerce. I was a secretary on that. I got one of the things, and I work with the education because education is truly vital if we're going to grow. And one of the things that I remember bringing after I had heard Colin Powell talk about the mentorship program on Groundhog Day, it's so old that you all might not even remember it.
I'm gonna go Google it.
But Google Colin Powell. And I was meeting with the teachers and the superintendent, and I said, what would be good if we could all have a mentorship program one Groundhog Day or any other day? And we thought about it for a year. I am not the sole inventor of it, but I thought about it.
Yeah.
We worked together, and it started off with one day a year. We would have a mentorship program where we invited students and businesses to come together. We identified students, we identified businesses. If the business couldn't come to the student, then we got permission the student go to the business to
Wow.
expose them to different kinds of businesses and positions and work. That has grown substantially. Nobody probably even remembers that now. I remember going to Richmond with that, but now it has developed into. You might remember that every year at the Ag Culture Center in Chatham, they bring students.
Oh yeah.
That's a result. That has come as a
That's
result.
all of the high schools,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. It has evolved. So when I think about that now, I sit back and smile and I said,
wow.
because most of the folk that I work with are even someplace else or that nobody ever knows that I had any, but that's okay. That's not what's it's important. So those kinds of things. I work with the social service department with our children. You know, children have problems. We have problems. So just to get to parents to understand that there's help out there, so that education is involved. Again, I work with, sounds like a bragging session, but that's not, that's impact. Um, Cherrystone Baptist Association. I was head of the youth department for 1 year. It is so comforting and rewarding for me to Dr. LaShawn Saunders, who's a doctor at UVA, when she was in town, called me and she said, "Hey, I'm in town. I just wanted to say hi to you. You impacted my life." So those are the kinds of things that, to me, have evidence. And of course, with Vice President of Pennsylvania County Branch of the NAACP, helping all people, no matter what the conditions are. So it's those kinds of things, and I would be really saying with the racial relation tension that still is, I think I was at one time I told somebody, I'm tired of being called to sit on racial relations panels, because until people decide that God made us all, that we all looking for the same thing, that there's going to be, we just have to learn how to love and respect each other. But that's a continuing thing. So still working with those with this kind of, so those are the kinds of things, and just through Pennsylvania County Community Action, relationship with the city, with the Board of Supervisors, with the City Council, and we service PCCA goes. We service Martinsville, Henry County, Patrick County, Danville, of course. Just meeting with them and bringing folk together and helping people better their lives, I think, I hope.
Yeah, and that leads into the next question. You named off a couple of partners that you guys work with at Pennsylvania County Community Action. Tell us what is successful about collaboration. Why do you think collaboration is so important? And what are those things that you do within your organization or you did within Pennsylvania County Community Action to make sure the staff, everybody understood how to collaborate and why it's important?
No man is an island. That's an old African proverb. We got to work together. We see that. Our mission is to help people leave poverty. We get funds for it. The city of Danville, they have a mission to help people, to grow the city, to bring people in. Anywhere you go, your mission to help people. This is helping people. You're expanding the North Danville area. The collaboration is because one person can't do it alone. Another man told me once, look in that drawer, Everlena. And I thought it was really the dumbest thing I had heard. Look in that drawer. He said, pull out a knife. I pulled the knife out. He said, I might have a knife sharper than yours. Well, it took me for a moment, and I think he could see that I didn't get it. He said, remember, there's somebody smarter than you. So collaboration will bring all of that expertise together, and you can collaborate, just like the ex-offender program. They're citizens, they're people. If we all come together, one can help in one area, one can help in the other. PCCA's mission, we have 17 different programs, but we're not, they all have to work together. If you call PCCA and you're in need of your utility payment, there's some other issues going on. You have a child, go back to school. You have house, whatever it is, let's collaborate. Let's do the case study and see how we can help the person. But don't just keep that with us.
Right.
Share that, so that if we can share that with the city of Danville, we can share that with Boys and Girls Club, we can share that with summer feeding program. Yeah. So we can all help each other. So if we keep it to ourselves, we're not really helping anybody.
Yeah.
We don't grow, because I don't want to be connected to someone that's not growing. I want to grow. I want to expand. I want to see results, and somebody's life is impacted.
So you see the importance of collaboration. What do you think is a potential vision for this North Main business corridor? You've seen it over the years, you've seen it at its highs, you've seen it at its lows, you've seen it as it now ready to come back and be thriving. What could be a potential vision? What are some of the necessities that you think will be vital to this North Main business corridor?
A continuous look at what it's going to take to restore it, to the way it was. That's not where it should stay, but expand on that. As I was driving through this morning, I looked at some of the houses. We are just as the houses here, they're just as elegant as Millionaires Row. They were functionable at that time. So if we can get that sense across that all of Danville can be just like Millionaires Row, we have the opportunity. Get people involved. Don't do the gentrification, drive the people out, but bring people back in that used to live here, that restore the pride. So I see an opportunity for families, for businesses, for recreation, because you got to have some place to recreate, for entrepreneurship. It's an opportunity for citizens to have an input to continue to grow. I looked at one of the street buildings that I think is being renovated now, and I'm thinking that's what I'm talking about. Renovate that, but make it practical so that folk will use it. Theater right across the street. Wouldn't it be good to come dressed up one night and sit there and watch a famous picture or something like that? So just a restoration, but still expanding it so that other areas will want to be like North Main Street. Let this be like it was. I was reading the history of it, and it said, I think it was 1889, 39, it was known as the central part of Danville.
Yep.
So let it be restored to that. Of course, tobacco's gone. I grew up on the tobacco factory's gone, but things have changed. So we can renovate it to make it. Bring these houses back. Make them available to people that were here, that live here. Don't bring in all the other folk that never knew anything about history, because pride begins within us.
Yeah.
So this is where I grew up. I think if we continue that, but get the people involved.
Yes.
It's good to have a planning committee. I know of the people that are planning it. That's good. But bring in the folk that you know once lived there that still have some input, and the people that are living here now.
Yeah. Because I remember walking through here with one of my aunts, and every time I come here, it brings like tears to my eyes because she didn't have any kids, anything. So when I got to hang out with her, it was so fun. And we used to walk from Henry Street all the way to Fruittown.
Mhm.
And she was like, I just want to walk. And I was like, well, where are we going? She said, what does that matter?
Mhm.
She said, why does everything have to have a destination? And I was like, okay, I'm just a kid. I'm just so happy to just be walking. And she would walk, and I'm trying to like really keep up with her. And I remember walking past the fish market.
Yes,
I remember where people would come and get their tires. I remember Verbers where you come get everything church.
everything church.
Everything church.
When you told me, I said, "Oh, I know exactly where you are."
Yep. I just remember all of those things. And so, as much as I want to renovate this, I don't want to lose that history. And I want my kids to learn about that history. I don't want this to be their remembrance
Mhm.
because I felt like I did something to cause it because I didn't do the work.
Right.
So I want them to see the comeback,
Yeah.
and I want it to be a legacy that I can remember. Like they
Right.
can have stories in their head just like I have in my head.
Mhm.
So I totally agree that everything don't have to be gentrification, like move everybody out.
Yeah.
I think that it's enough people here that have a voice, that have a vision, and that have the love for this area that can renovate it in a way that can be efficient, but can also keep the history that we have.
It's important to keep the history, because if you don't remember history, you'll make those same mistakes again.
Yeah.
I found that out. And the history is so important. I remember my daddy was, this is totally off track. My
That's
daddy
fine.
was shot in the eye when he was 11, accident, but he was able to drive, sold tobacco, and we would bring tobacco through North Main Street going to the warehouse, and you hear the bitters going on. I wish I could do it. But those are the kinds of things that we don't have that anymore. But there ought to be some kind of museum
Yeah.
that that resurrect some of those old history things and let them see that this is where we happen. Progress happens. We change each day. So we no longer stay where we were, but don't forget about where we're. So again, looking at some of those houses this morning, and I drive through here so often, but this morning it had a different appeal to me. This is North Main Street. Let's bring it back. If we want to do fish markets, bring in some nice clothing stores,
Yeah.
some nice businesses, have a nice, all kinds of things that we can do while supplementing the casino and everything else. So, folk will go all over Danville.
I love it. So to wrap us up, tell us what you want the future generation to know about leadership, about life. What are some of those things that you just want to make sure that we are left with? What's some last closing words that you would like to tell everyone?
Leadership is an expansion of you and what you want to do. Leadership is, you don't have to be in the limelight to be a leader. Management, I never wanted to be the head or number one. I always wanted to be in a management position to make the manager look good. So leadership is up to you. The one thing I would definitely say is don't settle for anything. Don't settle for a job because it pays bills today. Work, yes, yes. But while you're working at that job, grow yourself. Grow yourself. Grow your education. Grow your, if you have a desire to create something, I don't know what it is, find ways to grow that while you're working that paycheck. If you started and you fail, get up, go again. Don't be afraid to challenge yourself to take on a position that your family never heard about. Times are changing. You say, "Oh, I want to be a veterinarian." That's not that unusual now. Someone would say, "Nobody in our family did that." So what? If that's what you want to do, learn every aspect of it. Do it good. Go for it. Uh, Take advantage of every opportunity. Nowadays, there's so many opportunities affordable to us. Go back to school. Everlena is even thinking about going back to school because something I have to do. If I'm going to be a caretaker, I'm going to be the best caretaker there is, and I need to know about all these other things that can affect it. So just and don't be so set in being number one that you forget how to get to number one.
Yeah.
Another thing somebody told me, if you look at a ladder, you can go up on a ladder, you can go up on an elevator. Elevator, you hit a button and you're up at the top. A ladder, you take one step at a time. If that first step doesn't succeed, go back, try it again, take the next step, take the next step. Because ultimately, if you stay on it, you're going to get to the same point. So just challenge yourself, go for it. Make sure that you have a voice in your community. That's the difference. I think a lot of folk have that somebody else's decision. Well, that's true. But if you don't have your voice in it, nobody will know what you think. And that little thought that you plant, like that job shadowing program, it's still, no one knows it. You ask the superintendents about it and they go, who? What about it? But I know.
Yeah.
And if you're on Chamber Records, that it's there. Help somebody along the way. That's the. And I would close with a quote from Amanda Gorman. When day comes, we step out of the shades of flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it. And that's what I think the future holds for us. Each morning brings a new day.
You heard it here, you guys. The True North Speaker Series. I want to thank Miss Everlena Ross. I really do appreciate you doing this for us. I know you're such a legacy here in this community. So
Legacy, no, just the person.
so thank you for what you do. You guys tune us in next month. We will be hearing from Kit Mayo on September the 20th. I want to thank Chronology, Darius Johnson, for creating this awesome backdrop. And I also want to thank the Love Clothing line for this awesome shirt. See you guys next time. And again, thank you for tuning in to the True North Speaker Series.
Thank you.
Thank you.